Hello and welcome to this demo where we'll learn how to use the check app state activity while building automation processes. We'll add this functionality to an already built project to check the state of the DoubleUI application. Our first step is understanding what the check app state activity is and why it's necessary. Every desktop and web application has different pages, menus, and features, which are referred to as application states. For successful automation of processes that use UI elements, it's important to ensure that the application is in the correct state. In this case, the application supports different transaction types, such as deposit, withdrawal, and split deposit transactions, each with unique page titles and input fields. The check app state activity verifies the state of the application or web browser by checking for the presence or absence of a UI element in the user interface. Based on the result, it executes one set of activities if the element is found, and a different set of activities if it isn't. Our workflow currently opens the application, but if it's in the incorrect state, it throws an error. This is where the check app state activity comes in. We'll add this activity to our workflow and use the page title to determine if we're in the withdrawal transaction state. We'll configure the activity to execute a set of activities if the target appears, and another set of activities if it doesn't. In our case, we can determine if we're in the withdrawal transaction state by using the page title. We'll pause the current process and switch to the withdrawal transaction state. We'll use the page title withdrawal transaction as the target and the logo as the anchor. To confirm our selection, we'll press the Enter key on the keyboard. We'll keep the element to appear check in place to verify the appearance of the page title. This way, the process will now be able to accurately identify the desired state. Next, let's move our set of activities to the Target Appears branch. It executes this set of activities only if the activity detects that the application is in the correct state. Let's also add a set of activities for the scenario target does not appear. This branch executes when the DoubleUI application isn't in the withdrawal state. First, let's add a message to acknowledge that we aren't in the correct state. Now, let's run the workflow. As our process is aware of the desired state through the check application state activity, it displays the message as expected. Next, let's add a click activity to transition to the withdrawal transaction state. We'll indicate the withdrawal state radio button as the target for the click. Finally, let's add a log message to confirm the successful switch to the withdrawal transaction state. We're almost at the end of the process. The final step is to enter the desired value into the check number 1 input field on the deposit transaction page. Now, there are two ways to do that. You can either search for the type into activity and configure it, or copy and paste it from the Target Appears sequence. For this demo, let's keep it simple and not add these activities for this demonstration. Just one more thing before we run the process. Let's make sure that it's set to its default state. Let's run the process. Since we're in the deposit transaction state, the Target Doesn't Appear branch is being triggered. A log message is displayed, informing us that we aren't currently in the desired state. And the next log message confirms the successful switch to the withdrawal transaction state. We can also add a check app state activity outside of the Use Application Browser activity. To show you how, let's use the check app state activity to determine if a Notepad file named Withdrawal Details is open or not, and get confirmation through a log message. First, let's create a new sequence and give it a descriptive name. Then we'll add the check app state activity and indicate the withdrawal details file. For demonstration purposes, we'll use a message box activity in both branches to confirm whether the correct file is open or not. In the Target Appear branch, we'll add a message box activity and set the message. We'll copy the same message box to the Target Not Appear branch and change the message. Now the Withdrawal Details Notepad file is open, so we're ready to run this workflow. The message box will appear and show us that the Withdrawal Details file is open. It worked! Now let's close the Notepad and run the workflow again. This time, the message box will appear and tell us Withdrawal Details file isn't open. It worked as expected. Let's try one more thing. Let's open another Notepad file and run the workflow. As you can see, a message box will appear saying that the Withdrawal Details Notepad file isn't open, working as intended. The check app state activity can be used as a condition in the retry scope activity to control the flow of execution in an automation workflow. This can be particularly useful in cases where the automation workflow needs to wait for a specific application to open or be in a specific state before proceeding with the next steps. For example, in a scenario where a Notepad file named Withdrawal Details needs to be open for processing, the check app state activity can be used within the retry scope activity to repeatedly check if the file is open or not. If the file is open, the workflow can continue to the next step. But if the file isn't open, the retry scope activity can be configured to retry after a specific interval or until a maximum number of retries have been attempted. This helps to ensure that the automation workflow doesn't proceed until the necessary conditions are met. The retry scope activity can also be useful in cases where the automation workflow needs to handle exceptions or temporary failures, as it provides a mechanism for retrying a set of activities until a specific condition is met or a maximum number of retries have been attempted. We've reached the end of this video on the check app state activity. Let's do a quick recap. In this video, we learned about the check app state activity, which is a tool used in automation workflows to ensure that an application is in the desired state for successful automation of processes that use UI elements. This activity verifies the state of the application or web browser by checking for the presence or absence of a UI element in the user interface and executing different sets of activities based on the result. Additionally, the check app state activity can be used outside of the Use Application Browser activity to check the state of other files, such as a Notepad file, and control the flow of execution. Furthermore, this activity can be used as a condition in the retry scope activity. Now here's a challenge for you. Create a simple automation that incorporates the check app state activity as the basis for controlling the flow of the automation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next demo.